Hey, welcome to the Hired AV podcast. My name is Joe Way, and I am your host. And boy, do we have a good one for you today. I am really excited about today's show because I've been telling you, everybody, and you've probably seen from the last few weeks that we're I want to say changing direction of the show. We're expanding and growing because what we really want to do is offer these perspectives to you that really can improve you in your job, in your career, as a person, as a leader, and so what we're doing is bringing on guests now that give you an opportunity to kind of see outside of your silo, your adjacent self, your day-to-day work, and be able to improve you as a professional. So I'm really excited to have Peter on the show today. So with no further ado, like I say, everybody's favorite part of the show where I stop talking and the guest starts. Peter, please welcome. Tell people who you are and what you do.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me, Joe. My name is Peter Murphy Lewis. I am trying to figure out what I do in life. I'll give you the abbreviated version. We can go back and explore whatever you'd like. I started off thinking that I was going to be either a diplomat or an academic. So I studied my undergraduate in Boston, my master's, and all the way up to my dissertation in South America in politics, thinking I was going to be a diplomat. And I am becoming a professor, full-time professor. And on the side, I created a travel company. So I became an entrepreneur when I was 27 and slowly got out of academia and then got invited to do my own TV show while doing the travel show. And I moved back to the US 5 years ago, where I now work as a marketing consultant. The trendy word is a fractional chief marketing officer, and I'm producing a lot of documentaries. So I probably hire a lot of your listeners to help me do what I need to do in marketing for my clients. And I used to be in academia and miss it.
Wow, that is great. So, I love, like, I'll call it full circle stories of people's lives, and where you think you're going to go and then where you end up. And I would say, like, every one of my degrees, all the way through my PhD and all, is, it's in the humanities. And yet here I am as a AV tech guy, for my entire career, and having my business in the entertainment industry. It has nothing to do with what I do, but that's where life takes you and where your passions take you. So I want to kind of go to that, like, you know, with academia and with, well, actually, let's go to the travel. I have to start with the travel. I mean, so with the, how do you make that jump then with travel and then going, okay, I want to do documentaries and having your travel show? What does that what does that mean for you, as far as, like, okay, you're a marketing guy now, but that's not your intention. I mean, I would like to say that even politics and stuff, and being that is kind of marketing, but how do you kind of then take that and then go, oh, well, but there's also this education side to me.
Mm. I think I think that at my core foundation, I've always been somewhat of an educator. The people that I was drawn to in my life were mentor type people who were teaching me outside of the classroom, teaching me to be a young man, to be a good husband, to be a good son, to be a good brother, and so forth. And then so when I got into college, became a teacher's assistant and kind of started to replicate what people had taught me. And I was always very close to my faculty. Always, I mean, my best friends have always been faculty members that I sought after. And as life started to evolve, the doors that opened up to me along the way in my 20s, looking back on it, I've never said this, never thought about this or processed this. So some of it might come out a little bit choppy, Joe. Doors started to open for me that helped me understand where I could have a bigger impact as this quote unquote educator. And that initially, the first door was becoming a CNN analyst. So I started to talk about US foreign policy on South American CNN in Espanol on a regular basis. And then with my travel company, which I mostly did just to keep my mind creative outside of when I was working full-time as a professor and studying my PhD, that started to take off. And I realized that that was exciting. And I was teaching tourists. I continued to be an educator. And then because of my experience in CNN, I got invited one day to do one episode of a show very similar to Anthony Bourdain, where
Hmm.
they interviewed me about living in South America as an American and about my travel show. And the very next day, the producer of that show called me and asked me if I wanted to do my own TV show. And that TV show turned into more than 120 jobs that I've done. So I have a show in South America similar to Dirty Jobs, like
Hmm.
Mike Rowe in Spanish. And that continued as I came back to the US. And I think the as I've had the opportunity to build upon my personal brand, and I wasn't aware of this from an AI point of view. I triple I double dive into this, and I really focus on this today, but especially in the AI world. But back then, I realized that if I spent more time and energy and money into my personal brand, it would help create a moat around me. It would be harder
Hmm.
for people to replicate or do the exact same thing. So people would quit paying me for my words, my work, or the books that I published, or my academia, that my scholarly papers. Rather, people would start to pay me for how I speak, how I think, what I represent to them when they see me. And that has helped out. As long as you're authentic, people aren't going to reject that.
Yes, 100%. I absolutely love that, and I want to dive into this now because I get this asked all the time. Because I would consider myself, out of a realm of introverts, which a lot of tech people are. I am the outgoing. I'm the one that will speaks everywhere. I do that, but people want that, and they want that advocacy. What? How can someone take that step? And it's easy to say be authentic, but a lot of people don't. There's a fear around it, right? There's a fear
Hmm.
of stepping out, of having a voice. I don't know, kind of what kind of advice can you take for that, for people to say, all right, that is what they need to do to advocate for themselves. But I'll kind of stop at that.
I what I've dealt with this. It sounds like you're describing as imposter syndrome, and I
Yeah.
have imposter syndrome today at 45.
Yes.
I have a large team of marketers behind me. I speak on public stages, and I still get scared. I still get nervous, and sometimes I think that I'm not good enough to be there. There's one thing that I constantly give advice to interns, mentees, even my 9-year-old son, which is try to be the most helpful person in the room. And the way that you can be the most helpful person in the room, it might be carrying chairs, taking down tables. It might be helping somebody feel more confident, remove their imposter syndrome. And that is where you can find being authentic to be where you can feel very comfortable being authentic and remove that imposter syndrome. For me, that is usually helping people go from an idea from 0 to 1 when it's a marketing idea. So somebody wants to be an entrepreneur, they're scared. Like I'm
Yeah.
really good with helping them come up with baby steps to go from 0 to 1, and it seems attainable. Kind of like the book Atom Habits or Tiny Habits. Kind of,
Yeah.
I think that's where I'm really helpful. So like when people come over to my house and they're like, "Hey, I'm thinking about fixing up my camper," I'm really good at helping them thinking about the first 4 things they need to do to start their camper or build a website or start a YouTube channel. That's what I'm good at. And that helps me feel less nervous. And that's where I would start with anyone who's afraid.
Yes, absolutely love that. And and I think a lot of it, it's kind of that, how to eat an elephant one bite at a time, right? And being able to know that those
Hmm.
first couple steps, and I think that helps with the confidence, right? I mean, I think a lot of it in business world, we might say, quick wins, but
Hmm.
there's some of those things that, you can do. And when you have that idea of what you want to do with that project or whatever, you know it in your head. Often it's easy to see the final result, right? Because you know what you want to get. Harder part is all the stuff in the middle. But you're right. I think those first couple steps, what's missing, right? There's a
Hmm.
reason that idea came, right? And you know
Hmm.
that where I'm at, what I'm doing in life, or what my industry needs is missing it. You know where you want to go. It's that first couple. And I think that does help with that imposter syndrome because it's your unique value proposition that you're able to
Hmm.
bring to that next step. Do you have any secret sauce, any secret, like, kind of a 1, 2, 3 step at all for people to kind of outline those first couple things?
I have a cheat. I have a kind of like a cheat tactic that I use, and I use this often when I'm doing public speaking. I always say, hey, there's going to be some Q&A at the end, and there's also going to be a moment when I'm going to come off stage and I'm going to bring my cell phone with me and my camera with me, and I do kind of like a mini documentary while I come off stage, and I teach people how to overcome that fear. Because a year and a half ago, Joe, I had never done a documentary. And as of now, I've filmed and produced 3 documentaries, one that got accepted on every television in the United States, on Apple and Hulu and so forth. And I didn't have any experience a year and a half ago. So I come off stage and help them to do that. The cheat that I always say is, I say, some of you are going to be afraid to ask a question after the end. Some of you are going to be afraid to stand up and let me record you. So think about this. There's 5 people in this room right now that you know that are acquaintances of yours at this trade show that you can help. If they went out and you were in a small setting with 5 people, you're having your coffee, you're having your cookie, and they all asked you one question that you could help them with, what is that thing you could help them with? In that private setting? Start there. Start documenting that, whether it be on LinkedIn, on YouTube, if it's at a parent-teachers conference, it's at your church, at Boy Scouts. Just start with the thing that you could help 5 people with that you feel comfortable, and start organizing it in a way where you feel comfortable sharing it. That baby step will then help you start a podcast, have a TV show, be a public speaker.
Yeah, I absolutely love that. And I just imagine if everyone did that, just finding 5 people, one thing that you can do that helps them, moves them forward. In the end, we
Mm-hmm.
all move forward, right? And your own career grows
Mm-hmm.
by being able to do that. And I think back to even just, this podcast. I mean, literally was started because I moved. And it was actually very similar to your thing about not having done documentaries up until, a year and a half ago. But it's like I started this because I moved industries, right, into higher ed. And I didn't know anyone. It's like, well, I've never done a podcast in my life, but guess what? It's a good cheat to be able to meet, interview 50 people, a year. And I've just met 50 people in the industry. And then you realize this whole movement of now the podcast is an entire media company with other podcasts and other voices and other articles. It's like, that wasn't my intention when I grabbed episode 1 through 10 and grabbed the few people I knew and said, you're going to be my guest and you don't have a choice. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
But but then this movement started. And I think that is it's just that one step can explode when it's done, and kind of back to that authenticity of what you can offer, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a question in there, but I do want to go to something in your little, and I'm going to post some things on the show notes for everybody, and I really want you to check out the links to Peter's stuff. But I got the sheet from you, and it starts with, you can't tell someone's story from a distance. Talk about that. Talk about that. Yeah, I got to stop there because I just love. I stopped and froze when I read that line. Go into that.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. I think that the closer you get to somebody's heart, the closer you get to their pain, the more authentic and the more it resonates with other people. Now, I am figuring this out as we go along, but I can tell you what feels right in my gut. The first time that I got hired to speak was probably 15 or 20 years ago in South America. And I didn't feel like I could speak about anything. So I just went up and talked about how I became an entrepreneur, which was because nobody would interview me when I was a full-time professor. So I just started a travel company because when I was a professor, I was trying to get another job to make more money. I was only making $600 a month in South America in 2004. And no one would do it. So I started a company. That story of why I started a company, for some reason, that vulnerability, that fear of mine, my not being able to get a job, my feeling like I was pigeonholed into being an academic for the rest of my life, resonated. And then I got hired over and over and over and over. So what that says is you get closer to me in my heart, why I was afraid. And that's why that talk resonated. Today, I teach the framework that I've done from a TV show and from my documentary to people. And it's very simple. Joe, you're going to understand this immediately, which is, what is your before and after? And you and I have probably 127 before and afters that you and I could go back and forth with over the next 3 hours. And it's really easy to think about it in a superficial manner, and it's easy to think about it in a deeper, more human manner. So let's go superficial. Up until I was 44 years old, I had never ever had a little dessert called mochi. Have you ever had mochi? I think it's a Korean
Yeah.
rice covered
Yeah.
ice cream ball. I'd never
Yeah.
had it. I had it when I was in Northampton, Massachusetts, about 4 months ago, and it changed my life. In my house, I only have mochis right now. My son and I only eat mochis. There is a before and after in my life of when I discovered mochis. Superficial, but so
Mhm.
true, and everybody understands it. There's a before and after when I became a certified nursing aide. 5 years ago, at the age of 40, I went and became a CNA. It changed how I think about long-term care and nursing homes and elderly and how much time I want to spend with America's seniors. There's a before and after when I became a CNA. So when you start to play around with who was I before, what was the thing that changed, and who am I after, you're getting really close to the person and you're getting to the root of what motivates them. And that
Mm.
is interesting to everybody. If
Mhm.
your family, your father, your neighbor start to tell me about, why they became a plumber, or, why they moved out of their house when they were 17 years old. All of those things are interesting if we just know how to pay attention to before and after.
I absolutely love that, and what a great where I went with that is and I hear this all the time, people are afraid. Think about the conference networking event, the after party. People are like, just thinking if that was your icebreaker. Tell me a little something about you, like, because people can talk about themselves, people can talk, but it's interesting if you think of life change and who you are and all the little things that just happen, and you're right. And there's always the work things, but those are easy to get to, but to find out who the person is, and that's where connection happens,
Mm,
right? When you get to the
mm,
personal level.
mm.
Absolutely love that.
Joe, I
John,
want
if you
to I want to give one other cheat sheet because I didn't
yeah.
invent this, and any of your listeners can download it, and you can put the link in there. There's an article that came out in the New York Times, I want to say 10 years ago, and I think I might be getting this wrong, but the Google will correct it, which is, I think, 36 ways to fall in love, or 36 questions to fall in love. And they're
Mm,
just 36 questions that start pretty vague and move all the way down to very particular. Those 36 questions, you don't have to do it with someone you love. You could do it with someone at a convention. You could do it with your neighbor. You could do it with your wife. I've done it a couple times with people I don't know, and I've done it with my wife. Every single time, it's surprising, and you get closer and closer. Steal 3 of those at your next convention or your next work meeting, and ask a couple of them as an icebreaker to get started, and you're going to see some really interesting answers, and you're getting closer to that person.
I love that. Oh, all right. I'm putting that in, and I love it because I think too that, I've never come away from like a conference or meeting somebody or whatever, remembering the technical stuff that was talked about, or the what do you do for a living? You go to the spouse's work party, where nobody
Mm-hmm.
in the room, and half the room is full
Mm-hmm.
of people who don't want to be there, and they don't know anyone, and just being able to say that, okay, that connection, those are the ones I walk away with, like, oh, the wife would be like, oh, who did you
Mm-hmm.
talk to? Oh, I talked to Chris over there. Turns out we're both Dallas Cowboys fans. Blah 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 blah. Like, how did you even get to talking about it? I don't know, because I don't do your work. I can't talk about your job. And those connections, and those, when I come back away from a conference, those are the things that build. And then, because they also might happen to be colleagues, guess what? Now, when I have a work issue or I have something, I know this school did this, there's a natural bond to just reach out, and make the next step, right? Rather than, it gets
Mm-hmm.
away from the business card world, right? Of here's this,
Mm-hmm.
here's my title, here's that. And now you're connecting at the people level. And I think that's huge for our steps in our career. Absolutely love that. Absolutely love that. Um, so I kind of want to go to now making this tangible. Something else I hear from my listeners and my colleagues, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I hear a lot of the issues come from advocating for themselves, especially in things they want. Let's take your before and after, because I could even take it to, I have this project or this thing that I know will make my campus better.
Mm-hmm.
How do I tell that story? How do I even advocate? Because there's a fear of, oh, they're just going to say no, or they don't like, how can someone, and I know, like I said, I think there's a question here. What's your advice to that person that says, I have this idea, I know this, how do I tell the story? How can I go? How do I advocate? And, it goes all the way back. We're full circle into imposter syndrome and all that. I'll leave that
Mhm.
wide open for you.
Yeah. So my cheat here is to focus advocating for somebody else's idea first. So
Mhm.
get get your chops, practice with an idea from somebody else. And let's say, for example, Joe, you and I work together. I know that you're the quiet servant leader. You're always over prepared. You're always organized. You always show up earlier. You get things moving. But you might not be the person who will share your ideas in public. You're more of an introvert. There's some idea that you have to make everything more organized because you think that way, that would make everything in our team better. It'd be easier for me to find video assets, for me to find hardware. It'd be easier for me to find what were ideas from last year that we're going to improve upon for this year. All of those things, you just think that way, but you don't speak up. What I
Mhm.
could do instead of me learning to advocate for myself is take your great idea and stand up for you. And it's pretty easy for us to sell
Mm.
somebody else because it doesn't come off as arrogant, self-centered. What am I getting? Peter's not getting anything out of pushing Joe's idea other than I'm going to have a more organized work environment if we give you a little
Mm.
bit of more responsibility. That there's no financial benefit for me to make you look great in front of my bosses, but you get the practice of selling the idea. And you know what? It becomes contagious. If you're that person, you're that ambassador, you're that super fan of other people start to talk about you that way when you're not in the room and when you're in the room. And you're going to have people start selling your ideas for you. Plus, you're going to get
Mm.
practice and you can do it for yourself.
Absolutely love that. What a way to create that community of practice to like that. Get the advocates. I think we always like to say when you want to push an initiative or whatever, you need to find um, kind of those early investors in with you. Lack of a better word. Those champions to go along with you. But what a great way to build champions because you've built them, right? And you
Mhm.
recognize when they have an idea and you go, hey, you know what? That's good. Let me jump on theirs. Let me be their champion in this
Mhm.
project. Because some way, if ever any one person, even if I don't deal with them every day, if their area is better, it only helps me. It only helps our institution. It only helps our being more effective as an institution.
Mhm.
I absolutely, absolutely love that. Um, I kind of want to. I think we can go along this. I want to be careful on how I say this, but in higher ed, we are in a very interesting crossroads too. But politically, socially, some people, let's be honest, like just the current climate, people are questioning whether higher ed's even worth it anymore. We're
Mhm.
losing federal funding, and I don't care. I mean, this isn't whichever side, right or wrong. I don't think that matters. But how can then higher ed leaders kind of reclaim that narrative in this noisy, kind of politicized space?
Yeah, I would just copy a model that I would say I casually or luckily figured out in the last year and a half. So, a year and a half ago, I was at a convention in the healthcare space and I pitched an idea to a state executive. And I said, hey, in South America, I've been doing a TV show where I talk about people's lives through their work, and I talk about their work through their lives, and it's been really successful. And I said, why don't we do a version of this in healthcare? And she said, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, I studied to be a CNA a year or two ago. Why don't we talk about long-term care, nursing homes through the eyes of the people who take care of our grandparents? She said, huh? And I said, yeah, well, normally we show documentaries showing America's seniors, but what if we do it through the eyes of the caregivers? And she said, okay, but organize it, pitch it to me, tell me what it's going to cost, and let's test it. Well, we did it. And what we found out along the way, and I didn't know this before, this is things that I learned afterwards. What we found out along the way is these quiet people who have dedicated 1, 2, 3 decades of their life to the industry are extremely passionate. They just haven't been
Mm.
given the microphone or don't think that they deserve or no one cares about them. But what happens when you let that more frontline caregiver tell the story, Americans look at it and they see the authenticity, the transparency. Joe, if you and I
Mm,
were administrators or owners and we went and did that, everyone's going to criticize us. Oh, you're doing this only for profits. You don't actually, change anybody. You don't wake anyone up. You don't work on holidays. You don't work on Christmas. You don't work on Thanksgiving. It's easy to criticize an executive. But when you see a maintenance man, a kitchen staff, a dietarian, a CNA who looks like our neighbor, might be missing a tooth, might be hunched over, might not be well shaved, but they care about our grandparents so
mm,
much, we fall in love with their story. And Ken Burns taught us this. Ken Burns says you're never going to change anybody's opinion with more data. And I think this is true for higher education. I just recently spoke to an association of independent colleges about this documentary world. And they weren't interested in healthcare. They were interested in how they can change the public narrative around how valuable upper education is. And I explained that when you tell a story, like Ken Burns says, you can change somebody's opinion. And Joe,
mm.
you and I can think about things that our opinions have changed. And a nice icebreaker that I often ask when I'm at a dinner or something like that. What is one opinion that you have today that 10 years ago you couldn't believe that you would have? And when somebody thinks about it, and it's probably for you or I, it's probably their AIDS. So like in the 1990, I was born in 1980. So what I thought about AIDS in 1990 completely changed by 2000. And I worked as an
Yeah.
HIV AIDS caseworker. My opinion completely changed. What I thought of gay rights in 1995 when I was 15 years old is completely different than what I thought in 2005 when I was 25. What I think of cannabis, what I think of immigration, what I think of tariffs, what I think of politics, what I think, and so if you tell somebody's story, people's opinions can change. It's not more data. My opinion hasn't changed on cannabis or AIDS because somebody gave me a CMS report. It changed because I met people that were gay. It changed because I met people who had HIV and AIDS. My opinion of homelessness changed because I started to meet them. It's the exact same thing for education. So if you find students or you find professors, academics, people who are in love and they're able to explain the impact that they have or the systems had on them, you're going to change people's opinions. You're not going to do it with more data, and you're not going to do it with complaining about money because it looks like you're an executive. You're complaining that you want more money. If you tell somebody else's story, going back to what we said, who am I going to champion? I'm going to go to my next leadership meeting and say we all need more Joe Ways in our world. People are going to listen to me because I'm not talking about myself. I'm talking about Joe.
Oh my gosh, that is, and I think in higher ed, like that student story, right? And I think that's a big thing too of getting, and I'll kind of give the advice to the tech people: get out of your basement office, right? See who you're impacting with the technologies we put in. It's students, it's faculty, and I love how when you're getting their story, like how many students are, and and I'll speak from California. At UCLA, we're the most international students of any school, right? We have most underprivileged because through the UC system. Are we capturing those stories and seeing their before and after from what was their life
Mm.
before they walked on the campus and started learning and making these connections and growing, and what they have now? And that is such a great way to advocate for the needs we know, rather than walking in with a P&L, right? And knowing,
and,
okay,
and and it also protects you from the elephant in the room, which is AI going to replace upper education? Well, I would
mm,
tell you, I just started off this conversation by saying the most important thing in my life were mentors. There's a small chance that I could have learned what I know today via AI. There's no way that I would have had the mentoring and the relationships that made me way more foundational in who I am. My critical thinking and the way that I use the knowledge that I acquired came from those relationships, and AI does not give you that relationship. You have to speak about the elephant in the room, and if you put a person in front of it, person and relationship, that narrative can start to change our public opinion.
I love that. All right, I'm going to ask since I have you on, I'm going to ask advice for myself here, because I think about that. I'm a big champion of AI. People know that I use it every day. I'll throw in, oh, I need an email response. I need to respond. This is the idea of what I need to tell this person, and it'll give it to me, and it's already learned my voice. It'll hit me the 90%, but I have in the back of my head thought, am I losing Joe Way authenticity in trusting AI to
Mm,
write this for me? How do we
mm,
balance that going all the way back to our authentic self, our voice, our compassion and empathy to then having AI write it for us? Because there is got to be a balance somewhere of allowing AI to make life easier, but losing authentic.
mhm.
So, what's your advice for me here?
I don't really see it as a conflict because I would guess that the quality of the information that you're getting from AI has to do with what you created beforehand. So if you created a context library or you gave it a base of how you think and how you speak, and the prompts that you ask it are authentic, right?
Mm,
The way that you ask a prompt is going to be different the way that I ask a prompt. And that came from something that you and I learned away along in our life, our before and our after. For me, it's Dr. Holcomb, Dr. J. Anthony, it's Doug Winkler. Those are three mentors who influence the way that I approach this conversation with you, the way that I put prompts into ChatGPT or Gronk or whatever, and the thing that comes out, like the 10x content of AI, I don't see it conflicting with that at
mm.
all. I don't struggle with that. Do you?
Well, it has approaches my head. I guess not, but I am afraid of letting it do too much because I always am a proponent of your authentic self. Be you. If you want to be, don't
Mm,
try to be, don't try to be Simon Sinek if you want to be a big influencer. Don't try to be Gary V because they are them because they're them. Right.
mm,
I am me because I'm me. So I always think like once we bring these tools in, am I losing? And now is it AI Joe and not
mm,
authentic Joe? I don't know.
mm. Well,
Right.
I guess I have a little bit of follow up, and you and I are speaking right now about kind of written content or verbal content into some type of LLM. But one of the once again cheat sheets that I use to make sure that I am not just spitting out regurgitated information that was given to AI from an SEO blog 3 years ago, and now there's a repackaged into a different answer. Is I ask almost every prompt to ask me questions before it gets started,
Mm,
propose answers to those questions, giving me two options. So I have to then give it an answer that. And then I usually say, based around the information that you're giving me, I want you to rank it from most certain to least certain. Which do you believe to be true, and justify why it might not be true? So you have to play devil's
mm,
advocate. Like for anyone who has a 6-year-old to like a 15-year-old, they're about, a child is about to divorce you at some point. They're going to start to figure out who they are, and they're going to separate themselves from values or faith or philosophy or paradigm. You
yeah.
need to treat ChatGPT as if you're that 15-year-old getting ready to break up with it, and you
Mm.
need to question it and tell it to question yourself. I think that those two little cheats will keep you honest with AI and keep AI honest with you.
Absolutely love that. And that now you're using it as a real tool, and you're using it as its own checks and balances. Right.
Mm,
That is fantastic. I love that. Um, Peter, this is a great conversation, and I want to keep going for hours, but we have to go to the rapid round. People. Sometimes I know there's going to be return guests in the future, and I think we found one because this is just great conversation. But rapid round, okay, a little fun here, okay. There's no right or wrong answer unless I have an opinion of my own, in which case there could be a wrong answer. Everyone gets the same first question because higher ed, we're all about traditions and all of that stuff. What is your favorite college tradition?
mm. Wow. I don't know. I think that my opinion is very different because I moved to South America right after college. So a lot of those traditions, I think, were stripped of me. I mean, the tradition that I go to, and it's probably not a tradition for most people. For me, it's just being the first one in the study hall in the library on Saturdays. I like to be there at 5 or 6 a.m. and I wanted to be 5 hours ahead of everyone. That's when I felt cleanest, that smartest, and that's not a tradition. It's more of a routine. I'm
Mm.
not much of a traditionist, Joe. I know this was supposed to be rapid fire, but I'll tell you quickly. When you spend
Mhm.
almost 15 years out of your life away from your family, which means that you're not with them on Thanksgiving and birthdays, and you miss funerals and birthday and those important days, you start to take away the sacred from traditions and routines, because otherwise it's too painful. So if you're at home in the middle of August, you treat that as your Thanksgiving, because you might not see your parents again for another 2 years.
Yeah, I love that. See, that's a good one. That's great. See, personal traditions are good. I love that. I love that. Good answer. All right, next. Typically, it's not an official second question, but everyone kind of seems to follow up because I love travel. I love seeing people that say, for some reason, I got to hang out in Wichita, Kansas, and I call you up. Where we eating? Where we going? What we eating? What we drinking? What are we doing?
I'm taking you to what I think is the most boutique premium wildlife park in the United States. It's called
Okay.
Tanganyika Wildlife Park, and it's going viral right now because there is a hippo that's all over social media called Mars. It's a pygmy hippo, and it has 550 to 150 million views on TikTok and YouTube and Facebook. And this is a boutique zoo right on the outskirts of Wichita, where you can swim with penguins and otters and feed giraffes and hippos and rhinos. I'm taking you there. And it's an all-inclusive resort where food's included, and they give us free beer, Joe, like IPAs and everything.
Okay. Yes, you had me at Hippo, and now you had me at for IPAs and all inclusive. And which
Yeah.
okay, all right. That's a great. See, you're two for two. I like this. Okay, now we're gonna go. Now this is really quick. Little buzzword blitz here. We're gonna do, and it's just
Hmm.
it's kind of an either or questions here. All right. Private thank you or public recognition.
Both. I still write thank you letters, and my love language is words of affirmation.
Okay. All right. I like it. Yeah. I see. I go the public. I need my fragile ego likes public recognition. So there we go. All right. Um, better boss, empathetic or empowering?
Empowering. I think it's the
Okay.
same
Yeah.
with being a father. I don't think people need to like you or necessarily want to be around you. They need to be a better person because of you.
Yes. Yes. I like that. I like that. See, I was thinking you were going to maybe go empathetic off the conversation, but I like it because empower, but also you can be empathetic, empowering. So there we go. All right. Which is better to be respected, trusted, or admired? Respected, trusted, or admired?
Trusted. I teach my 9-year-old the most important thing between me and him is trust. Everything else can be taken from us. Money, life, health, everything. Trust can't be taken from us if we work hard at it.
Yes, love it. All right. A better support system, mentorship or friendship?
Mentorship, definitely. I think the asymmetric relationship allows for the person to be more honest.
Yes, I love it. All right, you're doing. I'm trying to find. I got to find a hot take here. I disagree with, but we're not getting there. All right. Uh, more important, work life balance or growth opportunities.
Growth opportunities. I am horrible at work-life balance. I love work. I ran an ultra marathon my first time and won it. I signed up for a 150-mile race afterwards. My wife said, "Stop this. This is ridiculous." Growth opportunities.
Yes. All right. I'm there with you too because I'm a workaholic too. It's like when people ask, "What do you like to do on your day off?" I like to work. That's what I like to do. Oh,
I
all
think
right.
so.
I'll do other things like that. All right. Then kind of a last one. This is going to kind of move, and this is just a little advice thing. What you've learned from being a documentarian and having your own shows and all that. What's the one lesson higher ed needs to learn from that? What could they adopt from those skills?
Mm. I think it. I think it ties to my work as being a marketer, which is things don't have to be polished. Progress over perfection, human over Hollywood. Those three things
Mm.
resonate. When you and I watch a documentary, we fall in love with those people because the people are they have contradictions, just like you and I guarantee if we spoke for an hour, you could find things, poke holes in me, and you realize that like I'm not coherent, I'm not congruent. um, and you're going to be like, oh, I kind of like that because I'm that way too, and it allows you to forgive yourself when you see me struggling with that as well. So I would tell upper education, human, not Hollywood.
Love that. Love that. And I tell you, that's a lot harder to do, especially in a work environment. It's so much easier to put up the wall of the pretend of this is the persona I want to put out. To break those walls, it's all full circle to what you've been talking about. Because when you can get to that personal side, when you can get to that next level, that's when real connection, real story, real life change, I think, really actually happens.
Mm.
Love that. All right. So last, everyone kind of gets the same last one. And this will be interesting because I'll give you how I started. And then it's just not going to make sense, but that's okay. I said, pretend that you had your own podcast or show, in which you do, but you get a 1 minute monologue to talk about anything. If this show is now yours, doesn't have to be about tech, doesn't have to be about anything we talked about. If you could talk about any topic on earth in a 1 minute monologue, what is that monologue? And your time starts now.
You can make a difference in somebody's life today. Quit following the news, turn off your cell phone, take your social media off, and go be the most helpful person in the room. At a nursing home, at a school, at a park, go smile, go give someone a compliment. You can change their day and their life, and you have no idea how big of a domino effect that will have. I've seen it in so many times in long-term care. You can unilaterally flip a negative relationship you have right now between you and your spouse or you and your child just by over and over and over being thankful, appreciative, empowering, empathetic. And over time, you're gonna beat that person up with kindness. You can make a difference. The world is not as difficult as you think. You can start now.
I love that. I love that. So true. And I do encourage people to do that and find those relationships, especially the ones that need help, because odds are the other person's probably wanting it to be resolved as well. And it just takes that first step to say, not just how do we come to terms, but what can I do for you? How can I help this
Mm,
relationship out? Um,
yeah.
and I think that there's so much behind that. Absolutely love this. Peter, thank you so much for joining. Last thing, I will put your LinkedIn and I'll put links to your site in the show notes. But if people want to reach out, connect, if you want to plug something, this commercial is yours. So please tell people how they can learn more from you.
Yeah, if this conversation resonates with you, connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm the only Peter Murphy Lewis on LinkedIn. If there's something about storytelling or documentaries that you think would be helpful, feel free to reach out. I do a lot of free consulting all the time. Be happy to help anybody here. If you're helping Joe, if you're a follower of Joe, I want to make sure that I give back. If you're interested in what I've done in long-term care, just look on your television tonight for People Worth Caring About is the name of the documentary. You can find 3 seasons on YouTube. I'm really passionate about long-term care ever since I became a certified nurse's assistant. So even if what I said doesn't interest you, but you're interested in helping America's seniors, your parents, your grandparents, go give it a like and share it with somebody young who wants to do something rewarding in life. They could work in long-term care.
Love that. Highly encourage people to do it. I will also link that in the show notes as well for everybody, so you can find that. Well, Peter, again, thank you so much for joining. It was quite a pleasure having you. I really enjoyed this. This was one of my favorite hours of the week. No matter what, just sitting here talking to you and hearing the heart you have behind people, and that's again where life change happens. So thank you, and of course, everybody. As always, you can follow me at Josiah Way. Follow at Hired AV, and find me across all of the socials. And as always, none of the opinions expressed here are those of any respective institutions, companies, sponsors, and anyone who wants to sue us. If you want to sue us, it has nothing to do with you. There you go. That's how this works. And again, thank you, everyone. And as always, if you did not like any of these opinions, I don't know how you didn't, but let's pretend you didn't. There might be better ones next time. Thanks, everybody.